Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Whether or Not. We have a great show lined up for you this week. Jackie Lair has a feature on a local winery here in Centre County. And of course, we have your forecaster, Brandon Orr, with your Father's Day forecast. All this and more, Whether or Not, starts right now. Hello and welcome to Whether or Not. I'm your host, Sydney Daniel.
And I'm your forecaster, Brandon Orr.
Well, Brandon, I do remember you and Jackie talking about last week being the start of hurricane season, and I know we're still in the beginning of June. Are we watching anything right now?
That's right. We did mention hurricane season. The start of it was June 1st, so we are into the season already. And nothing we're watching, at least at this moment in the Atlantic, but in the Pacific, we are watching a storm system that could take shape this weekend off the coast of Costa Rica and Panama.
Oh, well, Brandon, unfortunately, I'm getting ready to attend a class in Costa Rica next week, and I'm hoping that Pacific will clear up. But, Brandon, that's not till after this weekend, and we have Father's Day coming up. What's our weather looking like for this weekend?
That is right. Father's Day is coming up very fast this Sunday. A lot of people do have outdoor plans, whether it's a cookout, going to the park, maybe an amusement park. But this weekend is looking pretty nice. You'll definitely want to stay tuned to see the details coming up in just a bit.
But first, let's get to nature and the news.
Studies on the seasonally present mosquito determine how such a small insect can withstand a raindrop that is 50 times its own body weight. Dr. David L. Hugh from the Georgia Institute of Technology discovered during his study 25% of the time raindrops fell directly between a mosquito's wings. When this happened, the mosquito was absorbed into the falling water drop. Because of the mosquito's structure, however, the mosquito was able to just pull away just before the drop hit the ground and stay alive. Dr. Hugh says the insect's long wings and legs make it like a kite with long tails, and it can pull away. This study is currently being looked at as a potential model in efforts to develop robotic airborne search and rescue vehicles.
Researchers have discovered while people stare at optical illusions like this one, the eye begins to quiver with involuntary movements called microsaccades. Vision neuroscientists studied how the eyes and seeing affect the mental processes. In the experiment they tested, the researchers wanted to connect a person's eye movements to his or her experience of seeing movements within the illusion. The scientists observed that the eyes of volunteers who blinked more had sharp movements and continued to see a moving pattern. When the volunteers announced that the illusion began to disappear, the micro eye quivers slowed down. Microsaccades have recently become a popular subject to study because they're involuntary, which means they can't be deliberately forced. Scientists suspect that these movements have something to do with different brain functions, including paying attention. That means microsaccades might also be important in the study of diseases that affect vision and thinking.
New results from a study at Harvard University suggest ice-phobic materials can completely prevent ice formation at temperatures slightly below 0 degrees Celsius and can dramatically reduce ice accumulation under deep freezing, frost-forming conditions. The newly invented technology that is suited for both high humidity and extreme pressures is called SLIPS, or slippery liquid-infused porous surfaces. The claim is that this new technology can effectively delay ice accumulation and facilitate removal of ice even under high humidity conditions. It supposedly works by first being applied to surfaces such as roofs, wind turbines, wires, and signs, and will allow the ice to slide off by a slight tilt of the material or an agitation in the wind. Joanna Eisenberg, the leader of the research group, says the new approach to ice-phobic materials offers a way to make a transformative impact on energy and safety costs associated with the ice.
The National Weather Service announced last week that there's a 50% chance that El Nino conditions will develop during the second half of 2012. El Nino is a warming of the sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific that occurs every 4 to 12 years and has far-ranging effects around the globe, especially on food output. So what does this mean for Pennsylvania and the Northeast? Douglas Main from LifeScience.com says if El Nino conditions develop, the northern United States could be in for a warmer and drier winter than average, while the southwest and southeast could find itself with more rain than usual. On a tropical note, forecasters imagine that if the El Nino does continue for the second half of the year, the 2012 hurricane season that ends late in November will be less active than in 2011. Brandon mentioned earlier that our North Atlantic coast is clear, and we'll have more on your detailed weekend forecast right after our Weather Whiz quiz.
While you think about that trivia question, we are going to discuss the fact that, well, summer is beginning already this Wednesday. Spring is coming to an end, but it's going to hold on to all it's got this weekend. We're going to see temperatures pretty seasonable for this time of year. The next warm-up won't occur until the middle of next week, coinciding with that first day of summer. Right now, the heat is currently situated across the plains, streaming up from the Gulf of Mexico. In Wichita, Kansas, we're expecting a high temperature this weekend on Saturday of 95 degrees. Dew points are going to be up as well, so it's going to feel humid and very sticky out. That's going to head our way towards the middle of next week. But for right now, we have high pressure in control over the Canadian Maritimes. That's leaving us with mainly dry conditions. Clockwise flow around this high pressure system will bring in some winds out of the east and southeast, keeping our temperatures just around average for this time of year. If you're heading down to the beach, whether it's the Jersey Shore or maybe Ocean City, Maryland, water temperatures right now into the low 70s. That looks to continue this weekend. But if you can't make it down to the beach, you can always head out to the pools. The public pools will be open this weekend. Friday will be a great day for it. Temperatures right around average, 78 degrees, mostly sunny skies. Heading into Friday night, if you're heading on out or you want to open up the windows while you sleep Friday night, it'd be a great day to do it. 57 degrees for your low. Dew points are going to be low as well, so it's not going to be sticky out, not humid whatsoever. During the day on Saturday, plenty of sunshine. UV index will be high. Temperatures just like Friday into the upper 70s with a mixture of sun and clouds. Overnight Saturday, just a mirror image of Friday night. Temperatures into the upper 50s rather, with low humidity. And as we head into Sunday to end out the weekend, just a couple degrees higher, topping things out, 80 degrees, UV index still on the high side. Coming up next, Jackie has a feature on a local winery here in central Pennsylvania.
For centuries, people have toasted and even celebrated with wine. However, they don't know how the climate can affect it. I decided to come out to Mount Nittany Vineyard and Winery in Center Hall, just 20 minutes outside of State College, to see how the climate here in central Pennsylvania can affect the taste of wine.
France, Italy, Spain, and California are known for being the largest wine producers. So how does a winery in the heart of Pennsylvania stand against the reigning grape capitals of the world? I caught up with the co-founder of Mount Nittany Vineyard and Winery and retired Penn State College of Business professor, Joe Carroll, to see how central Pennsylvania competes against these top grape growers.
Pennsylvania is not a terribly good place to grow grapes. And most of the grapes are growing up along Lake Erie.
So, central Pennsylvania is not the best place to grow grapes. But Mount Nittany does provide shelter for the grapes grown locally.
We thought that this was a pretty decent place because of the hillside. You get air drainage off the cold air goes down, so it doesn't get quite as cold here as it does down in the valley.
Joe is right. One reason why the winery is so successful year after year is the well-suited microclimate. In other words, like Joe mentioned, the superior air drainage and the open exposure on the southern slope of Mount Nittany protects the grapes from both an early and late frost. This creates a favorable environment for growing European and hybrid wine grapes. However, the mountain doesn't protect against everything Mother Nature throws at this local vineyard.
So, but our biggest problem, besides the number of degree days, is the rain and fungus.
Frost, rain, fungus? Joe makes it obvious it's not an easy task to keep a winery up and running year after year, especially this past one.
Last year was one of our worst years. Up until September the 1st, it was one of our best, and then it started to rain, and it rained, and it rained. And our biggest problem in growing grapes is not only the number of degree days that we get, which limits us. We can't, for example, we can't grow and ripen Cabernet Sauvignon here because it takes a longer season than we have.
From my visit to the winery, I not only learned how much the weather plays a role in the success of the vineyard, but I also learned that devotion and determination is what sets it apart from the rest. Joe and his wife Betty, also a retired Penn State administrator, were both amateur winemakers 20 years prior to opening the winery in 1990. With a passion for wine and a love of the climate on the slope of Mount Nittany, this allowed Joe and Betty to harvest the beautiful 65 acres of land, install a state-of-the-art bottling line, and entertain guests from the local area. So if you want a place to enjoy breathtaking views and the taste of wine produced almost in your own backyard, Mount Nittany Vineyard and Winery is your place to go. Lucky for you, the rest of the month of June, on Saturdays in celebration of National Dairy Month, the winery offers free wine and cheese tasting as well. A perfect way to relax from a week of work, right? And even learn a thing or two about winemaking from Joe and Betty.
I'll let you know a little bit more about Central Pennsylvania's climate and how it affects the wine here at Mount Nittany Vineyard and Winery. You can come check it out for this Father's Day weekend. And up next is Brandon Orr with your Father's Day forecast.
Father's Day weekend is approaching. A lot of people have outdoor plans, hoping for some of the blue skies like you see behind me here. It looks like we'll get that coming up this weekend. On Friday, seeing temperatures fairly seasonable for this time of year. Look at this, 78 degrees, low humidity, plenty of sunshine. Couldn't ask for anything better if you have any outdoor plans. Lows Friday night getting down into the upper 50s. Much of the same in store for your first half of the weekend on Saturday. Sunday warming up just a couple of degrees, but still experiencing that low humidity with highs right around 80 degrees. Earlier on next week, we're going to see seasonable temperatures to start the week, but warming up with a few showers and thunderstorms by Wednesday. Really warming up on Thursday, right around 90 degrees, and seeing a cold front to cool us off by Friday.
That's right, Brandon. But first, you were mentioning we have to get through the heat of the mid next week. You were talking about temperatures in the upper 80s and almost reaching that 90-degree mark, which is just in time for our astronomical start of summer. The summer solstice will be here next Wednesday, June 20th, which is leading us to our Weather Whiz quiz question. We asked you at home, when the summer solstice occurs on June 20th, how many hours of daylight are we expecting? Is it A, 14 hours, B, 15 hours, C, 16 hours, or D, 17 hours? And the answer, Brandon, is B, 15 hours of daylight.
That's right. Coming up next week, we'll be seeing just about 15 hours of sunshine. That is the most amount of sunshine that we'll see in one 24-hour period all year long. And the reason for that, Cindy, you can see by this graphic right here. Us here in the northern hemisphere are tilted towards the sun in the summer because our Earth is tilted on an axis. And this is what gives us not only our 4 seasons that we see all year long, but also that 15 hours of daylight as well. And believe it or not, those further north, further higher in latitude rather, like northern Alaska, will be seeing nearly 24 hours of daylight. That means the sun never sets there coming up next week.
Well, that is incredible. Thank you for that explanation, Brandon. Well, we'll have Michael Page joining us here on Whether or Not next week with a feature. That is all the time we have for this week's show. For today, I'm your host, Sydney Daniel.
And I'm your forecaster, Brandon Orr.
Have a great weekend.